Hello my loves, I'm Ellie Frost. Thank you so much for being on my channel where we are talking about the multi-dimensional approach to rapidly and radically healing and transforming during and after narcissistic abuse. And I want to talk today about rewiring your subconscious mind after narcissistic abuse, right? Because there's two parts to us kind of transforming after narcissistic abuse or in life in any way. One is healing and one is transformation. And reprogramming our subconscious to support what we want to experience in our life is so key. What I found though from narcissistic abuse was when you're very traumatized, the body's going first, not the mind. And so it's like our body's having a reaction like with PTSD, and that's informing the thinking. Once you're regulated, and I'm relaunching Sovereign in July, so we're pre-enrolling now if you want to join that, because that is about healing trauma and many other things, about really healing and transforming after this cycle. Once you've got yourself in a position where you can regulate and you are more regulated, you can start addressing your subconscious beliefs, right? And the thing to know about the subconscious mind is it's constantly making assumptions on how the world works, right? Who you are and what you get to do, be and have. These assumptions are going on, you're not even conscious of them, right? So much as so many of us will say, well, I can just put up with a narcissist, I can just tolerate this. And we go into toxic situations, I used to do this, and think, well, I'm strong enough, I can cope with it. The thing is, what you don't consciously accept, your subconscious mind, what you don't consciously reject, your subconscious mind accepts. There's a woman called Marissa Peer I like, and she says, first you make your beliefs, whether you know it or not, and then your beliefs make you. This is so true. So when you're in these environments, I've talked before about some particular subconscious programs that narcissists implant in your brain. The idea that you don't matter, the idea that you don't exist to a large extent, keeping you in constant confusion. There's some root ones that they implant that then those subconscious programs lead to a number of other ones. If you think if the subconscious program believes I don't matter, yeah, then it tells the body that. Your health doesn't matter, your life doesn't matter, your dreams don't matter. You start just operating, you're not enough, you don't matter enough. You know, it leads to all sorts of other things, a chain reaction. Now, it's proven scientifically that our bodies respond to our subconscious. In fact, you can change your belief systems and heal a lot of things in your body. So we want to be aware of this and not kid ourselves that I can just be in toxic environments and be fine, because like a sponge, your subconscious is absorbing stuff, and it's, you know, all going on subliminally. It's not to be scared of it, it's to understand that one, like if you had a flower, right, you would put a flower or a seed in good soil, you would fertilize it, give it sunlight and fresh water, yeah? You wouldn't take a seedling, a small flower, and put it in dried up, dirty soil, feed it dirty water and toxins and give it no sunlight and expect it to grow. So we've got to understand that in the narcissistic cycle, you're giving yourself the worst chance. It's not that it's impossible to transform in those dynamics, but once you've done that, you're going to want to move forward and not live in toxicity, because it's going to always impact your brain. In fact, you can be very healthy or relatively healthy in your thinking before you get with a narcissist, and that constant subliminal impression will make an impression on the subconscious mind. So we've got to be very conscious of what we let into our lives, into our minds, into our hearts, into our bodies, into the whole thing. It's all energy, but it's more than that. We've got a mind. Now, for most of us who've gone through trauma and these cycles, we're not running our minds. Our minds are running us, which is not what your mind is for. In fact, your heart, your intuition, your spiritual connection is your guidance system. I believe every desire in your heart is meant for you. If you've got dreams, they're yours. They're meant for you. It's not an accident. And you're meant to be guided towards them. right? So we're meant to use our minds to create belief systems, structures, frameworks that support us in achieving what we want to create in our life, what we want to experience. But for most of us, what's actually happening is we're just being influenced all the time. We're adopting beliefs from our parents, from our environments, from culture, from society, from the news, from the media. We don't even realize that we're being bombarded. And a lot of them aren't supporting and serving us. I talked a lot about when I was in very, very impossible situations, literally trapped in narcissistic abuse. I started finding evidence of people who did impossible things and listening to their stories and letting it permeate my mind, because how to get out of what I was in seemed impossible, seemed like it would take a long time if it was even possible. You know, all that stuff. I had to reprogram my mind to support what I wanted, which was to get out of it fast. And I did transform extremely fast, because I did everything I teach you. I used the tools in Sovereign to alleviate the PTSD and the trauma and regulate. And then I conditioned my mind by finding evidence of what I wanted and being very mindful about what I was letting in and very conscious about what I was not going to let in to my mind. It wasn't the time for me to indulge in worst case scenarios, which is everything that my brain wanted to go to, because there were many times I was in a lot of fear, and rightly so. You know, I was in dangerous situations. So I had to find a way to work with my body, work with my mind. Body, because you can't solve a feeling with a thinking. So we've got to solve trauma on the level of the body, but then we've got to work with our minds in a way that supports what we want to experience in our life, which is being guided by our hearts, right? Guided by our intuition. Now, you can't even feel your heart and your intuition and your guidance system in trauma, because we're just in fear. So it's just like a complete fear thing. Understanding how to do this literally starts a change in things. So we've got to be very mindful that we're like that little seedling. If you watch things on, especially if you're traumatized, by the way, mindful of what you watch on television, probably don't need to watch the news, definitely don't need to hear about impending doom. You've got to understand that where you actually are in your life and what would be useful and fertile for you to expose yourself to, because at certain points when you're in recovery or you're in transformation states, right, this is a very important state for you to be very mindful of what you're feeding your body, your mind, your soul, your energy field. So in Sovereign, I teach you about self-partnering, self-sourcing, self-focused, which automatically starts radically changing these and breaking the subconscious patterns, because once you do those things, your mind knows you matter, your mind knows you exist, and not only that, you start having a different relationship with manifestations and moving towards your desires just naturally. It breaks a lot of the damage that is done when you're sovereign, because you start understanding that you can create your own reality. And then we have, I do it in that course, and I've got another, just a membership that you can plug into, Live Fully Now, to keep you on thinking differently, basically. The difference between people that succeed and don't is the way they think. It's not their qualifications, it's not their some people do have a certain advantage, but having studied peak performance, that's what I did before I did this, peak performance in people, the way you think is very, very important. I once worked with a nutritionist, and she, this was years ago, she used to train people at the Olympics, and she started a different method. So she was there to do their nutrition and help them in peak performance, but she started introducing a particular sort of meditation. I do energy activations and clearings in my work, but it was like a 15-minute visualization for the athletes. Now, the people that she did that with performed 15% higher after her using that method. So what we put in our minds matters. It's proven that your mind can't tell the difference between what you vividly imagine and what's real. So when we're in trauma, all we're imagining is doom, and actually we're manifesting it. So that's why you've got to break it. Please come into Sovereign for July if you can, if that's where you are. Other than that, our mind is not a weapon against us. It's an amazing tool, because if you start visualizing other things in your life in an expanded energy, not in resistance and not in lack, which I teach people. I do teach that in Sovereign, and I teach it in other things I do. But basically, if you visualize, but it just creates like a lot of feeling of lack because you're still traumatized, you haven't processed your other emotions, you just feel resistance to something, you're actually doing the opposite. You're making sure you're pushing that thing away. So it's productive to visualize when you're in a positive energy, where you can actually connect to that thing in a positive way, right? That draws it towards you and helps you manifest fast. But using our mind correctly, right, can help us massively accelerate our growth, our transformation, and our healing. So if you're interested in that, contact me about private coaching or Sovereign for Deep Trauma Release, and Live Fully Now for a plugin, which does give you some shifts where I'm doing a weekly theme with you to help you think differently. Other than that, think about it. There's a lot of information on this. And when you know you can do it, now if you try and reprogram your subconscious mind when you're very traumatized, it doesn't work. That's what I found, because there's too much resistance in the body. So it's a little bit complicated, but when you get the knack of it, it works like a charm. So any comments, let me know. Lots of love, guys. I'll speak to you soon.